Hey, hey gang, happy Halloween. So we got a big information dump yesterday, which I was hoping for but wasn't quite expecting, but we got it. So a little bit of a change up today. As opposed to going into the progress tracker, we're going to kind of look up at the roadmap roundup because there's a lot of information there, and the release view because it refers to a lot of the information. So let's get it. Okay, for those of you who have not seen this show before, or you're just catching me like post CitizenCon or something, you don't know that I do this. This is a Sprintwatch where typically I go into the progress tracker, kind of go through all the deliverables that are coming, my thoughts on them, how realistic they are that they'll be in the next patch or further down, or what I think they represent for the project as a whole. Not going to be doing that this time just because there are so many roadmap roundup things. But start with the caveat. I am just a dude on the internet. I am just looking at the numbers here. I don't have inside sources at CIG. I have done a little bit of game development in the past and a lot of project management for my real job. So I do have some experience with what is going on there, and sometimes when I guess right, as I did in this case, which is causing some drama in the community, but I don't think it should. So let's get into that. So I'll put two links in the down below parts, or allow you to skip ahead if you don't want to hear the roadmap roundup, or if you don't want to hear about the release view, you can just skip ahead. But I'll be giving my thoughts on both. So roadmap roundup. So let's see if they have anything new in the upfront. No, they don't. Star Citizen 1.0. So this is obviously brand new post CitizenCon. Following the review of Star Citizen 1.0 at CitizenCon 2954, we're excited to introduce a new addition to the release view and the public roadmap. This column outlines the high-level objectives for the 1.0 persistent universe, offering a clear vision of where we're headed. While it's not a comprehensive list of every feature, it highlights the core goals that will shape the 1.0 experience. This new column represents our developmental journey. Development journey or developmental journey? They say development journey. Let's just go with that. Toward 1.0, allowing us to continuously release features and content ahead of and leading into the official 1.0 launch. As features content are completed and ready for the next live patch, they'll migrate from Star Citizen 1.0 column and into the dedicated patch-specific column. That's good. So I'll get into that in a second. This approach lets us deliver regular updates to live servers while giving you a clearer picture of what to expect from the 1.0 experience overall. Head over to the release view, see the full overview, and don't miss the final panel of CitizenCon for an in-depth look at the path to Star Citizen 1.0. And I do like a, you can click through my live stream if you want to see my reactions to that, or I also kind of did a review of the entire CitizenCon, kind of does a quick summary of each one. But yeah, that last one is worth catching. Actually, we'll just talk about it now with Star Citizen 1.0, because I don't think they actually tell us what's in 1.0 down here. No, they don't. So essentially, Star Citizen, unlike the previous patches where the patch was the goal, these are the things that we want to release in this patch. Star Citizen 1.0 is the state they want the game to be in when they reach that point. So as opposed to having a 1.0 patch, and it'll have all these things that they'll release for the 1.0 patch. When they release all of these things, that's when they'll consider it 1.0. So it's a little bit different than the way that they've been doing it for like the last 5 or 6 years that they've been setting up the roadmap in this style. So with that in mind, when we look at the release view, I'll kind of go over that again. I guess I can close the progress tracker since we're not going over it today. Notable changes for October 30th, 2024, and boy, are there a lot of them. Release view. The following cards have been added to Alpha 324 column on the release view. MISC Starlancer Max. Building, balancing, and implementing MISC's large multi-crew cargo ship, the MISC Starlancer Max, into the game. Argo CSV SM. Building, balancing, and implementing Cargo's flatbed hauling ground vehicle and Argo CSV SM into the game. There are 2 more of these that are going to be coming probably pretty quickly into the new year, at least one. I would assume the combat variant and the building variant are probably going to be dropping relatively soon. Combat variant would make sense for the TAC, the TAC. Invictus would make sense to drop it for that one. It should be simpler than the building one, which will require working drones and stuff. Anyway, and the Cargo CSV has a build version too. RSI Polaris, building, balancing, and implementing RSI's Corvette, the Polaris, into the game. And we're going to have a little talk on these. I'm going to pull on members of the Carnival, and we're going to have a little chat on some of the ships that were showed off, what we think they'll do for the more speculative ones, or how we'll use the ones that we know about. The Anvil, Hornet, Tracker, and Ghost Mark II, we've known those are in the cards. Acidic Caves, implementing the Acidic Cave archetype, coming both to Pyro and Stanton systems, adorned with luminous pools of water and dramatic stalactites and stalagmites. These caves provide, said that weird, a captivating setting for exploration, FPS missions, missing person missions, and more. Rock caves. This is the rework of the existing caves that we have that aren't the sand caves. Implementing the rock cave archetype, coming to both Pyro and Stanton systems. Illuminated by bioluminescent mushrooms, these caves provide a unique atmosphere for exploration, FPS missions, missing person missions, and more. So one thing I liked about the older caves, they were much more like real caves in the sense that there was almost no natural lighting in them. The new caves are extremely well lit. Like, even if you go into them at night, it's like walking into a room that's been dressed up to look like a cave. It doesn't feel like a cave. That said, this is also a game, and stumbling around in the dark and falling to your death isn't particularly fun. So I don't know. Additional player customization. Following the release of the new character customizer in Alpha 3.2.3, this update adds additional hair and facial hair options, as well as face piercings, which are extremely basic right now, but they all work. Yeah, some of the new heads they've got in there, they don't mention them here, but they've introduced probably something like, I think they've doubled the number of the available heads, so you can really start tweaking the face to look the way you want it to. Multi-tool updates. This is kind of a big one. Bringing the multi-tool in line with Squadron 42, including adding additional functionality like cutting for specific scenarios, repair, and updates like improved handling, integrated UI, big one, and the use of batteries to operate it. That is going to cause an uproar when people have been using these things battery free with free energy for, I think, like 6 years. I think that's about as long as they've been in here. We've had the cutting tool forever, but like the tractor beam has only been like the last couple of years. So this is one that I called probably over a year ago. Upon review of the support required for server meshing, Pyro, and general stability of 4.0, we made the choice to temporarily remove several deliverables from the 4.0 release to free up necessary engineering bandwidth to prepare for launch. This list includes engineering gameplay, life support, fire hazards and fire extinguishers, charge and drain, and transit refactor. We're aware that many of you are looking forward to these features, especially engineering gameplay. Yes, very much so. But rest assured that we're committed to pulling these back in as soon as possible. Meanwhile, several features that were planned for Alpha 4.0 have been pulled forward to Alpha 3.2.4.2, such as the new vehicle HUDs and MFDs, network, additional player customizations in the multi-tool updates, as those were far enough along for us to bring them to you all sooner rather than later. Additionally, the addition of they needed a copy editor on this. Anyway, additionally, the addition of Resource Network allowed us to partially deliver on some of the core engineering gameplay functionality in the form of the updated power management MFDs, with more to come, which is cool. It finally does give your co-pilot something to do. Like, they can actually be like, okay, you need more power to weapons, you need more power to shields, you need more power to engines. They can actually do that now. But anyway, these are the things they move. Life support. Implementing the first iteration of onboard life support systems in ships, which entails a ship component that generates breathable gas when turned on. This is the room system they've been talking about for ages. And management of said life support component within the vehicle loadout manager. So you can turn air on and off in a room from the engineering station. Pretty cool stuff. Engineering allows players to manage, maintain, and repair various ship systems. Players can assume different roles that each provide a unique gameplay loop. With engineering gameplay, players have to contend with item degradation, malfunctions, and power management. Fire hazard. Implementing the fire hazard system, which tracks fire and temperature on static and dynamic objects. For the initial release, fire will be set up on a select few vehicles. I would assume the Reclaimer, the Carrack, and maybe the Connie. I think those are the ones that we've seen them on. Maybe the Cutlass. It's kind of limited right now, but the advantage of them punning it out is they'll be able to implement it on more ships when it drops. Fire extinguisher. All tasks required to implement functioning fire extinguishers in-game. This feature will work alongside the fire hazard system. What? Solar burst. Solar bursts are dangerous natural disasters that happen regularly around older stars like Pyro. In these instances, the sun erupts with a high-energy particle wave generated from its surface, traveling at 15% the speed of light through the entire star system. This dangerous high-energy particle wave can be avoided by hiding behind other objects that are big enough. That is kind of cool. Charge drain. Adding the ability for players to drain, store, and charge objects with power using the multi-tool. Includes the ability to overcharge objects and also remove distortion damage. Overcharging and overclocking is something that they talked about in the old days. The Endeavor had a, what do you call it? Particle accelerator mod on it, or module on it, that could overclock things or overcharge them. So first step towards the Endeavor. Transit system refactor. Reworking the transit system used for trams and elevators kind of needs it. But anyway, all of those are kind of taking a back seat. It's not going to be too far along. So what I've been saying for the last year is, if I were running the zoo, I would not put server meshing and pyro and like jump points in the same patch as a really major game loop, especially one like engineering that touches every single ship and every single system in the game. Because then when things are breaking, it's kind of like, is it server meshing or is it engineering? Is it how those two are interacting? It complicates the job of the coders behind this exponentially when you mix those two systems. So it is much easier to sort of be like, engineering is a giant thing on its own, is going to have a host of problems. And it's going to take a while for CIG to get it working the way they want it to. Server meshing is clearly something that they're having a lot of issues with, and getting it to work the way they want it to. Smashing them together is an absolute recipe for disaster. So they are doing the right thing by breaking them out. And yeah, there are several people in my org that are not happy about that. several people in the community are not happy about that, but from a realistic standpoint, them doing this is better for us in the long run. And I would imagine engineering looks like it's pretty close. So they'll get 4.0 out the door probably by the end of the year, at least to the PTU, the wider PTU. It's an Evocati right now. Sort of let it sit on the PTU over their winter break. And then they'll come back and they'll kind of deal with the bugs and all that. And then they'll do 4.1, which will hopefully fix those bugs, unlike 324.1. And or I guess 324.2 wasn't all that great either. But anyway, hopefully we'll have a working game by the end of the year. That would be nice. I imagine we're going to have 324, 3 or 4 coming out here pretty soon for IAE, where we'll get a couple new ships and hopefully they'll have the servers up and running. Right now it's 30Ks like I haven't seen for a few years. Like, this is as unstable as I've seen the game in a long time. And part of that is them implementing this server meshing. So you want that working. You want engineering to be working. One's got to come before the other. I kind of want Pyro in the game. Then they can bring in engineering and get engineering working. Totally makes sense that they do. That's all for this week. Join the discussion on Spectrum. I imagine the mods on Spectrum are very busy since this announcement. Let's move on to the release view. So here we go. So we got 4.0 here. Really, what we're going to be getting first is I would assume they're going to do what they usually do with the big number patches. Like I was saying, they're going to release it to the wider PTU by the end of the year, because 4.0 is going to break a lot. And then they'll come back and they'll fix it, and we'll get 4.0 to live next January or February. Could totally be wrong. They could drop it to live, a lot like dropping in engineering. I think that would be a mistake. But let's kind of go through. So 324 additional player customizations. Yeah, we've seen all of those. Let's see, anything new in here? Freight elevator, storage access. Yep, nothing there. New ships. Of course, they got the Zeusai. Zeus. Let's go Zeus. Anvil Hornets. CR and CS. Oh, that's the Ghost in the Tracker. Okay. Polaris, of course, is coming now that they got the Argo and the Max. That's interesting. So we're actually going to be getting the Max probably for IAE. That's cool. I didn't realize it was coming that soon, but I guess that makes sense. Yeah, so the Max will be flyable that quickly. That's cool. I actually did buy one. Argo Atlas, I'm still waiting to see if they drop a Titan suit. I don't think they will before Squadron 42 is released, but maybe they'll release like a mining version or a salvage version. So, something that small. They should be pretty quick to make variants if they wanted to. Weapons, multi-tool updates. So that was the one that we talked about. Yeah, all of that pretty easy. Wouldn't be shocked if they shifted some things out. 4.0 continues to drag. Like asteroid bases is something they could implement. Where is it? Right there in Stanton pretty easily. Basically a dungeon dive in space. Kind of cool. Colonialism, Pyro space stations, obviously gotta wait for that. So probably getting them next year. Quasi Grazer. You know, I could see them moving this over to 324 build if 4.0 is going to be delayed to next year. I could see them dropping that in on us. Let's see, new missions, location repair. That's where you can drain power from one thing and power up something else, among other things, or use the repair beam and fix things that way. Core tech, of course, server meshing is the gigantic one. Server or mission system refactor, pretty big too, and kind of flying under the radar. Hopefully they have a show on that, but we'll see. But yeah, that's 4.0. So with 1.0 there, you can see that there's not a date on it, because again, when all of this stuff is in the game, they're going to consider the game released. So let's kind of go through. So as time goes on, as more and more patches come out, I don't know how they're going to number them, like 4.1, 4.2, 5.0, 6.0, who the hell knows, which is weird because they shouldn't call this 1.0. They should just call it live, Star Citizen Live. Don't call it 1.0 because it's confusing. Starware. So that's probably one we're going to get sooner than later, I would guess. Law and security, that's going to be one where we're going to we've got tier 0 now, but they're going to have like tier 1, 2, 3. One of the things that Richard Tyler said in his talk was, when they're saying that like these loops are on there, they want them to be in an almost completed state. So not tier 0, they want them to be like tier 3 or 4. So think more like where mining is right now, rather than where medical gameplay is right now. So planetary shields. So essentially what these are is planets are largely protected by a defensive system, almost like the ComSats, except I think they've actually got the ability to attack, but people can go in and take those systems over or pay to use them and utilize them that way. Which is good and bad, because a lot of the things they started talking about late in SeasonCon kind of seem to heavily favor the bigger the org, the more you're going to be able to take advantage in the game. And I mean, in my opinion, big orgs already have a huge advantage because they're big orgs. And here you're giving them big gameplay advantages in addition to that. And yeah, if you are a small, super well organized org, you might be able to outmaneuver a big org for a bit, but those numbers are just going to be crushing. So they're kind of forcing people to glom into bigger and bigger roles, which eventually I'll have another talk on the Carnival and the way that I kind of set things up, because I've been in and I've run big orgs before, and people can just get lost in the sauce, even if you're a good leader. So I kind of tried to come up with something a little different for this org. Ownership. Implementing robust ownership for systems, items, vehicles, and more, including the ability to transfer ownership both legally and illegally. So that's cool. Again, these are in-game goals. So we'll get in the next year or 3. My window for Star Citizen 1.0, where they're going to be here, is about 5 years, give or take, depending on how fast they move. A lot of these things, the tools to make these lines exist, so they should go a little bit faster. Guild systems. Guilds are NPC driven organizations, effectively, like overarching structures that people can kind of float into. Insurance, taxes, and warranty. A lot of drama about that one that we might talk about during the ship talk, but I don't want that one to get super duper long, because then the people in it will be the only people watching it. Anyway, Reputation V2 obviously is a big one, integrating the reputation system with the guilds and rewards, as well as the addition of improved reputation app. New player professions. Of course, they got the sniper on there. Addition of new player professions to the persistent universe. Death of a spaceman. Introducing permadeath and associated consequences into Star Citizen. That is going to be one that people have been hearing about for years and years and years and years and have not considered. AI blades, a new vehicle component enabling autonomous operation of various aspects of vehicles, such as turrets. Now, they're showing a hammerhead here. Do I think that you will be able to automate all 6 turrets? No. No, I do not. I think that you might be able to automate 3 to 4 things, maybe. And if you put a blade running a turret, you're going to be sacrificing something else. Like your ship isn't going to be as efficient, not going to be able to quantum drive as far as fast or as accurately. Maybe won't be able to tank damage on the shields as well. You get the idea. I've done another talk on that if you search for AI blades and NPC crews and that kind of thing. I think they'll be extremely useful. I don't think they will be, I can solo a fleet because I have AI blades. Player space stations, that was amazing to watch. But again, the more I watched that sort of intro and how they were doing it, it just really, really, really seems to favor the largest orgs. Like if you're in a smaller org, you might be able to help build a station for someone else. I could see smaller orgs kind of working together to build a group base. Yeah, I don't know. It's still a very cool mechanic. Crafting obviously will be a pretty big deal in the game. Base building, again, big orgs are going to have an advantage, but small orgs, you might be able to tuck yourself away somewhere and be safe. Player-to-player trading, that's enormous. We'll need that for the Banu Merchantman. Player organizations, implementing the ability to create and fully manage player organizations, including a dedicated mobiGlas app. And they showed that off, which is kind of badly needed because right now, I would say 90%, maybe 98% of all of the organization is coming outside the game, like on Discord or TeamSpeak or formerly Guilded. Social mobiGlas app, citizenship, which you should be able to get citizenship by playing Squadron 42. That was one of the original ideas. Core tech, global illumination, probably get that sooner than later. Star audio, probably get that sooner or later. Star sim, that is what Quantum used to be, their sort of underlying economy and NPC management system. We'll start getting tiers, but I think we kind of have a version of that right now that's like tier 0.00001 or something like that. It's not really Star System or Star Sim, so they'll be rolling that out. I would hope sooner or later. Content instancing, wouldn't be surprised to see that sooner or later than later. Dynamic server meshing. What is coming in 4.0 is server meshing. Dynamic server meshing is I'll start with server meshing. Is the server, they'll have like a server for Pyro and a server for Stanton. And when you travel from one to the other, you'll be traveling from one server to the other. So the servers are talking to each other. Dynamic server meshing is let's say you are the only player in Stanton, and you're in Orison. And so it'll spin up a server for you dynamically, hence the name, and you'll be in Orison. Let's say another player comes in and they go over to Lorville, it'll spin up a server for them. Or since there's only 2 of you, it might be able to handle you on one. But let's say 100 of your friends join you on Orison, 100 of their friends join them on Lorville. It might spin up 2 or 3 servers, depending on where those people are and what they're doing, just to kind of handle the load and keep the frames up. That's dynamic server meshing. So that is a whole other ball of wax that they're going to have to conquer someday. Starchitect, they did it. I think they said Star Architect originally. So I was saying Starchitect sounds better. I think they probably already going that. New tool that scatters ground locations based on environmental and designer data to populate the world of Star Citizen at an unprecedented scale. Expect to see that sooner than later. Plague Tech V5, again, expect to see that sooner or later. Dynamic weather. A lot of these I would expect to see in like the next year or 2. These aren't 10 years away. Like maybe these space stations, nothing I'm seeing here is particularly far away. It is more like the Castra system is. The Terra system definitely is at the far end of that map. But yeah, that is kind of what I'm looking at. Is I would not be shocked if we get Nyx and Castra next year. That would not blow me away. They need to really start picking up the pace of making systems that are simpler. Like Nyx is a simple system. Castra is a relatively simple system. Terra is definitely not. Terra is probably not as complicated as Stanton, but getting there. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm seeing. A lot of these things they've got in this list that they consider, we're not going to call it until these things are in the game. We're probably getting at least a tier 0 implementation in the next year or two. So during SitCon, when I said 5 years out, I'd take that bet, I'd still say that's in the envelope. Could it go longer than that? It's Chris Roberts. So yeah, it could be a decade. I don't think it'll be a decade. I think people will have moved on to something else if they haven't gone live by then. But if they keep populating it, like if we're getting some of these things every year for the next 3 to 4 years, people are going to stick around to kind of see what they do with it. And they're always going to be iterating on it. But anyway, that's what I got for this one, gang. So let me know what you think. Let me know what you think about them splitting off engineering and server meshing. I'm glad they did it when they were kind of hinting that they were going to land those things in the same thing. Like over a year back, I was like, I hope they don't. Like, I would rather get engineering first and then get pyro, or get pyro and then get engineering. Put them both in the same patch. It's going to be a nightmare. And it looks like they eventually saw a reason on that. I just wish they would have seen it a little bit sooner. But anyway, gang, that's all I got. Let me know what you think down below. Like and subscribe, blah, 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 blah. Happy Halloween. Catch you next time.